Welcome to my channel and enjoy my Better Call Saul coffee theory. I theorize that coffee in Better Call Saul represents more than just strung-out lawyers trying to stay awake. Coffee represents relationships, and each initial coffee interaction gives us prudence into how certain relationship dynamics play out. This was shown over and over again, from coffee being the first real bonding moment between Mike and Jimmy, a coffee mug gifted to Jimmy representing Kim's feelings towards him, and coffee being the beginning of the end for other relationships. So let's start from the beginning. Starting from Season 1, Episode 2, the second time we ever see Chuck, we instantly gain insight to Jimmy and Chuck's relationship. And this scene really sets the tone moving forward. Jimmy wakes up feeling groggy and hungover and gets offered a cup of coffee from Chuck, to which Chuck offers it to him black. Jimmy asks for milk, and Chuck looks at him and sighs, visibly frustrated that Jimmy did not provide the milk that he expected him to bring. This ultimately sets the tone for their relationship. Throughout their past, Chuck often expected more out of Jimmy, and Jimmy does his best, but often underdelivers, to which Chuck would find it annoying, but would still serve him regardless. We see Chuck serve him from representing him in court when he was facing charges, bringing him into the firm for doc review, helping him assemble the Sandpiper case, and so forth. However, as much as Chuck expected Jimmy to eventually change his unlawful ways, Jimmy always underdelivered to Chuck's expectations. Later on, we see Chuck realize in his heart that he can never change Jimmy, so he keeps his feelings internalized until it implodes. The next significant coffee scene characterizes the start of Mike and Jimmy's relationship. After Jimmy's dislike and annoyance for Mike's rule-driven nature, he's asked to break a rule for Mike, to which it becomes a big surprise for Jimmy. By spilling the coffee on the officer, it gave us deeper insight into the dynamic between the two characters. The first thing we can note about this interaction is that it allows us to understand that Mike is exceptional at reading and analyzing others. It also shows how Mike views Jimmy, and this is before Jimmy even realizes his own shaky morality. This interaction also spoke volumes about how Saul's view on Mike has also changed. He's not just a stickler for parking tickets, he's an ironically rule-driven criminal. This was a start of their friendship and an unspoken bond. Now, my favorite one. My coffee theory in relation to the Kettlemans may be the most obvious and comedic of all. First, let's analyze the human behavior we see in their interactions before analyzing their relationship dynamic. In every interaction, we see Betsy open up by holding Craig's hand briefly to always suddenly let go to hold herself throughout any bad news about Craig's charges, while Craig is always holding on to his coffee without ever being able to take a sip. Craig's coffee is representative of Craig's freedom and happiness. Craig knows he should be taking the advice of his lawyers for the best outcome. His coffee represents his hope. Betsy's character represents a self-serving woman who only cares about her own best interests while pretending to care about her husband. This is why we often see her holding and comforting herself. Betsy dictates decisions that will deeply harm him for her own selfish reasons. Craig is passive and allows her to dictate his fate, and we can see his true feelings through their interactions with coffee. Every time he gets close to drinking his coffee, Betsy turns it away, rejects it, or pulls it away from him. It's almost cartoonish how they were able to depict their relationship dynamic just through coffee. The fourth interaction that represents relationship is one of the most prominent symbols of the series, the special coffee mug gifted to Jimmy from Kim. In Kim's perception, this mug represented what Jimmy meant to her. It also represented her perception of him and his chances of ever becoming a legitimate and law-abiding lawyer. The mug to Jimmy represented his perception of himself. And without Kim meaning to, the lighthearted joke on this mug actually played as a reminder to Jimmy that he is inferior and that he will never be number one. Jimmy always felt inferior to those around him, but he continued to stick by them because Jimmy had a fear of being alone and he genuinely loved the people around him, despite his feelings of insecurity around them. When Jimmy began thriving on his own path, we can see his first real reward from this path being a Mercedes-Benz, and this was a symbolic piece of the puzzle that the coffee mug couldn't fit in. This emphasized how Jimmy's unlawful ways to receive that car did not fit in with the perceptions that others had placed on him. The mug being shot with the bullet hole through it, this was the moment of symbolism showing that Jimmy broke bad. And Kim realizes this as she stares through the bullet hole of the mug, beginning to lose any idea of Jimmy ever going straight, so she later tosses it in the trash. We can also see that when a character rejects coffee, neglects their cup, or refuses to drink coffee with someone, they are displaying their disapproval or discomfort towards the other character in the scene. We can see this with Kim and Chuck.
How about some coffee?
No, thank you.
Would you mind making me some? I apologize. It's just, I can't do it myself with the electricity.
Sure.
Kim, make 2 cups.
When Chuck requests they sit down for a coffee and Kim quickly turns down his request, only to be asked to make him a coffee regardless and make one for herself, this leaves Kim feeling obligated to follow the request. And as she listens to Chuck talk about Jimmy's disappointing past, Kim doesn't touch her mug at all, insinuating lack of engagement in the conversation. Chuck's words will not impact her feelings and she will maintain her loyalty to Jimmy. And not long after this interaction, Kim leaves HHM, as this interaction served as a reminder that she is working for others and obligated to serve others, despite her saying that she doesn't want to, versus working privately and for herself. We also see the disappointment and disapproval of Nacho by his father based off his behavior with coffee. Nacho's father rejects coffee when it's offered to him, only for Nacho to make it regardless, and his father leaves it untouched the entire interaction. Nacho's father is communicating his refusal to engage positively and communicating his negative emotions towards his son by neglecting what his son had served to him. Honorable mention number 1. Howard Hamlin's relationship with his wife. Howard communicates his love through acts of service and attention to detail. He loves to serve others, and when Howard creates a perfect cup of coffee for CHERYL, which goes easily unnoticed and poured away, it represented his feelings of being dismissed and underappreciated within his marriage. It also represented CHERYL's avoidant personality, which hurts Howard, and Howard's tendency to bottle up his emotions to work around her avoidant traits. Coffee also presents itself as a symbol of relationships with Hector Salamanca, who frequently drank coffee in a way that represented his power dynamics in the cartel. Hector's behavior around coffee represented his feelings of power, as we see him casually relax while sipping on a coffee during moments of violence, pain, and intense negotiations. Hector's strange comfort and ease in these situations showed his power and how truly untouchable he felt. Hector's coffee scenes representing his arrogance and ego becomes his ultimate undoing, as the very thing that symbolizes his power is also a huge contributor to his downfall. Nacho swaps the pills for Hector upon serving him another cup of coffee. Another perhaps related, perhaps reaching point is that Hector contradicted his health through his displays of power through coffee. Hector's pills are typically used to treat coronary artery disease, and people who use this medication are usually advised to avoid caffeine as it can contribute to high blood pressure. The whole point of taking these pills is to reduce blood pressure. It's safe to assume that the coffee majorly contributed to the speed in which Hector experienced his stroke following the pill swap. Turns out the ego is the enemy after all. And a final honorable mention is about Clifford and Kim's relationship. Clifford winces at his coffee every time he is being deceived or manipulated. Clifford appears to wince at this coffee during conversations with Kim regarding Howard. This subtle indication to bitterness perhaps leaves us to suspect that Clifford is often leaving these conversations with a bad taste in his mouth. Due to the manipulation, he feels that something is off. However, he is also left questioning himself and being led to believe Kim due to the bizarre plots set up against Howard. That's it for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Did you guys discover any other hidden symbolism or meanings throughout the show? If so, please leave a comment down below. Also, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you did enjoy this video.